getting through our business this afternoon and getting people back on the road. Some folks have quite a ways to go, and so let's get started for the afternoon. Appreciated the discussion this morning. We got out of order a little bit this morning. That's my fault. But we want to come back to the issue of just general updates from our department and from the School Facilities Commission point of view and et cetera. And so let's get started with that. Good afternoon, Director. Hope you had a good lunch.
We did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Del McComey, Director for State Construction Department. We're going to kind of tag team on this between Shelby and John and I. So the first item up on this is agenda number 5. It's the updates based on the active capital construction projects. And so Mr. Rexis is going to go ahead and walk you through this section of it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. John Rexis, School Facilities Division of the State Construction Department. I struggled a little bit with exactly how deep into the weeds I should get with this particular report. So I think where I landed on this is I'm going to hit some of the high spots on the project updates, things that not that all of the projects aren't significant, but things I think that might be interesting to this particular committee. So I'll start there and then I'll open up for any questions about any of the projects that you all would like to ask.
Sounds like a great plan, Mr. Rexis. Thank you.
We have about 24 projects on this list that are currently active capital construction projects. Some of the ones that I would like to point out are Albany County School District 1's new Slade ES-AC upgrade. And I know this one's been on the books for quite some time. I think the significance to this particular project is that we are going to be making a review or doing a review during the adequacy standards update. And most likely this is going to be something that we are going to be considering, is adding that. So we've beat this horse to death, I think, in previous meetings, but I'm always available for some of our new committee members to bring them up to speed on what occurred in that particular project. The Campbell County 1 transportation facility is currently at 60% design and moving forward. We did get a supplemental appropriation on that one, so thank you.
Let me just reiterate that we are moving forward on the transportation facility in the Campbell School District.
That is correct, yes.
I'm just checking. Just making sure that that's where.
You almost lost me for a minute there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the deer in the headlights there for a minute.
I do want to bring up some of the big ticket projects that were mentioned earlier because of their significance and because of their costs. So the new Campbell County High School is well on its way. It's at 60% design, looking to move forward to 95% design. And they bid out phases 1 and 2. Phase 1 work's already in progress. Phase 2, it's at least getting ready to begin. The new ARP-ES, as stated earlier in the meeting, has bid out and it's been awarded. The contract is in process on that particular project, and as Director McComey stated, that project is within budget. We also have the new 5-6 elementary school in Laramie 1, which is going to be named Mountain View, that Mr. Knapp spoke of earlier. That is currently out to bid right now. At the time of this report, it was at 95%, but we have given them
the second item, John, on the second page. Is that
yes,
where you're at? Okay, thank you.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. And again, I'm just skipping over and hitting some of the high spots on this. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask at any time. Sweetwater 1 has the new Rock Springs High School that we spoke of earlier as well. They're currently at 35% design. That review is nearly complete, and I anticipate that they will be moving to 60% design very soon.
John, I'm sorry, Mr. Rexis, Sweetwater 1, the new Rock Springs High School, is that going to be located on the site where we did the work 5 and 6 years ago
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. It's where the satellite high school currently exists,
Okay,
and those two will be integrated into one, I believe.
thought so. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
And then finally, I just wanted to point out that we are moving forward with Jackson Hole High School addition. That was a long drawn out Mercer process that we were able to work through. It was extremely complicated, but we believe we're on the right path and they're moving forward. They currently have an architect selected and we're in the contracting process for that as well. I did include some of the design depictions straight out of the project documents for those projects. I don't really have any current photos to include because they're all pretty much in the design or just beginning construction phase. But, with that, I'll open up for any questions you may have about any of our current capital construction projects.
Questions for our construction management supervisor committee? Go ahead, Senator Rothfuss.
On the Campbell County project, so we have in statute the community review board that is to be assembled for a high school project that works on helping to design and potentially provide enhancements, do all of the community work, look at the possibility of bonding. Did that process go forward? How did that go? Are you aware of that process for this project?
Mr. Rex.
Mr. Chairman, I'm aware of that process, and I believe we always try to get the stakeholders in the community involved in these designs. However, if Mr. Bartlett's still here, maybe he's not. I think he could probably speak a little bit more towards that. But I don't know any specifics about what that looks like and who all's on that particular committee.
Are they going to do any bonding for enhancements? Do we know that?
There are some enhancements. We haven't formally received the enhancement request form at the department yet, but we do know that there are some enhancements. And frankly, that's one of the things that we're working through right now before we issue the notice to proceed to 95%. We've gotten cost estimates on the project, and we just want to see what that breakout looks like between the district enhancements and the state's responsibility before we give them that notice to proceed. But I believe, I almost don't want to go here because I'm going 100% off of memory. So please keep that in mind. I believe on the school itself, there was somewhere in the vicinity of $3 million worth of enhancements and a substantial amount towards the stadium package in the field as well. And I'm not really comfortable giving a number on that, but it most likely exceeds $10 million.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, on that, but we don't know whether they're bonding for that or how they're going to pay for it. They could be paying for that out of district resources. I mean, the concern comes down to similar to what we had. I just want to make sure that for larger high school projects, if they're doing something that's enhancement related, that they're contemplating the total cost of ownership and the long-term cost associated with it. They establish sinking funds and they do things responsibly. So they don't have to come back and use their major maintenance on the building really focused on enhancements.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I read something to that effect in the communication between us and the district, but I'm just really not comfortable
that's all right.
guessing or speculating on what that may have been.
Okay.
But I believe they do have funds in place to take care of the major maintenance.
Okay.
We've had a lot of conversation about the potential for the 10% changing or going away based on conversation that occurred during the last legislative session. So they're well aware of that. But formally, I just can't speak to it and tell you exactly what their plans are for maintenance.
I would sure encourage Mr. Rex, just you push in that direction. Albany's a really good example of doing that the right way and putting a sinking fund in place. And so those are good questions. So
Thank you.
Anything further, committee? Okay, please keep going, Mr. Rexis. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that pretty much concludes our project update. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Administrator Carlson for the Mercer update.
Administrative
Mr. Chairman, Shelby Carlson, School Facilities Division Administrator. Just to give you an update on where we are with the Mercers, we did start at 24. We still have 10 of those that are moving through. One of those is a new one, and I'll point it out as I go by. I'm just going to focus a little attention on the those highlighted in green. Albany 1 Central Kitchen, this is a non-educational facility. We had hoped to be carrying this to the commission in June. There's been a recent change in the district. They're actually looking at buying a building in the location that potentially may play into this Mercer as a good option. So I've just hit the pause button on this for a minute till we see what happens with that potential purchase. Next, one down there that is green, anything shown in orange is complete. I have added a column on the far right side where you can see a D is for design, C for construction, and it shows if those projects have funding or not. If you look on, the next green one is Converse 1. This is the Douglas Intermediate Elementary School. This is a project we have just recently kicked off. And so we are just doing analysis on the existing information, trying to identify the number of remedies that we are going to consider before we move that on to phase 2. So working on that one pretty hard right now. Conestoga Elementary School, we went to the district. They had requests for us to look at a number of different systems in that building. So we have done that in the process of evaluating all of those, looking at the critical systems and those that are coming due. I anticipate I'll have a draft back in their hands next week. I reviewed it last week, asked my consultant to make a few changes to it, and hope to have it to them next week.
Mr. Carlson, can we back up to Douglas real quickly?
Absolutely.
The grade configuration 2-3, what exactly in condition is why we're doing a Mercer study? What all it's, I've been in that building and I couldn't remember that it was too dilapidated.
Mr. Chairman, I can't tell you exactly what
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what the condition issues are specific. I think as we get into that facility, there are going to be more issues that we need to look at with that school. So it'll be a pretty broad and I think a pretty large Mercer study with a number of remedies to be considered. But I can't remember the exit components that drove it. I
Okay.
do know it's over, it hit that 0.3 mark a couple years ago.
And Mr. Chairman, we used to do those conditions when we hit that 0.55 or a 0.6. And a couple of years ago, that's been changed to 0.3 so we can more proactively hit things and take care of them before they become maybe a remodel, a big remodel or reconstruction project itself. And again, we're looking 5 years ahead on that.
5 years of when the new school would open, if it
Yeah.
was a new facility.
So we're looking, so when we're
Years.
assessing that condition, we're looking at
Oh.
what that looks like off of our data 5 years out compared to where it's at now. So that may be why when you visited it doesn't look terrible, because we're trying to be more proactive and hit those things ahead of time. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Please continue, Ms. Carlson.
I'm going to go to the next page, Sheridan Early Building. That one has been stalled for a while as we've been working on some of these others, but we are getting ready to go to work on that one. And consultant still assures me they can make that by this fall, a completion on that. That facility is largely enhanced space. And so that Mercer's just going to take a bit of a different route, I think, because most of it is non-educational. Or I should say non-educational, but most of it's enhancement. So Lusk Elementary School, our consultants working on their first draft there of that report have not seen that yet, but they are actively working it. Southeast Elementary School, Middle School, High School, and Goshen 1. That's a Plan 1, and they're actively working on that facility and that report as we speak. Also active on the Pine Bluffs Elementary School. This is one facility that we are seeing some growth. Some areas where we tend to be seeing growth tend to be along the borders of our state. And so this particular school is growing. All our projections are showing that's going to continue to grow slowly. So I think we will see this one come out as an actual addition to that facility. It was designed originally to accommodate an addition, so should be pretty easy to do.
So Pine Bluffs is actually one of those that we had to almost do an emergency insertion into the, into the priority order. And it wasn't that long ago, was it?
No.
Really? I
say-
want to say 8, maybe 10 years ago, maybe.
I know it was under construction when I was here before, so I think it was built in probably 17, 18 timeframe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Niobrara VOAG, this Mercer is nearing completion. We should have it, I think, within the next few weeks. Frontier Academy, we are on task to try to get that before the Board of Directors or the Board of Trustees in June, and hopefully on our June commission meeting. So I think that this one is very near completion. Wheatland Junior High School, this is a non-educational building. This one is just really getting kicked off, so it won't be completed for a bit. So we have done some of our initial reviews, looking at our first brush at our FCI and our condition scores for this upcoming year. We do see a few facilities probably going to come in there with condition needs. Also working pretty hard with Albany 1 on the Laramie Middle School. It does not meet the condition needs as of yet. But I can tell you about a year ago, I stood in the corner of the media center and could see blue skies through the corner of the walls. I'm like, well, it's not hitting a 0.3, but I think we have a problem. So that one we are working with the district and looking at components, and I think we'll see Mercer going there fairly soon. So that's what I have to allow. We're pretty busy with Mercer's, really trying to get a lot of these wrapped up enough. So if we don't have funding already available, we're hopeful that we will be able to make a request with this next legislative session. So I'd take any questions.
Do you have anything? Madam Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am really struggling with this mic today. Thank you, Shelby, for addressing my question was on Conestoga. We've been waiting on that Mercer for quite a while. So, and you answered that question. You're going to get back with the district most likely next week. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Director?
one of the things too is I think we've got about 2.5 million left in the fund for the Mercer studies, and they are coming up. So that's something, and I'll maybe talk a little more when we talk about future budget, but that we may be taking a look at. I think in October, we're going to go out and try and put this back out on the street, get some more consultants to help us do these, try and keep them going. As I think if you're aware, we've got 4 consultants that are handling these for us. And we hired all 4 that applied to do these studies. Actually, I think if we can get some more, it'd be great because we can keep them kind of rolling through. So.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we will actually have that out this summer because I hope to have those consultants under contract by October, because that's when our current contracts terminate. So.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, next item up is the status of 95 million 2023 appropriation, and Shelby will handle that also.
Mr. Chairman, just a rundown, kind of update you on where we are with the 95 million. First project there, we've had that 5.149 million sitting there. I anticipate this one to come in at a lower cost value that now with the things that we have reviewed. We have been working pretty hard on this particular Mercer for quite some time. So we still have 5.1 set there. Renovation at Conestoga Elementary School. I actually did increase the cost for the design on that based on the information I'm seeing in the Mercer that we have in place at the draft stage. But I felt we had too little money set on that line item previously, so I increased it 110. Transportation facility, that 1.492, actually, we didn't quite hit that value, but just letting that sit until this design is complete and we make sure we don't need any more of that funding. So I've just left that dollar figure alone. Here's the construction / demolition for that, the existing or the new and the existing transportation facility in Campbell. See $5.4 million there to do the construction and demolition of that facility. That is a new add since you've seen this list. Renovation of Southeast Elementary, Middle, and High School. We just talked about that Mercer. It is moving along. There is 1.719 million sitting there for design, and there is money in the 24 session to work on that facility once we have determined the remedy. The new 5.6, we've got 54.8 million in here for the new, I think I put Metal Arc, but I believe that's Mountain View. So that number has not changed. Replacement of ARP Elementary, we have 3,480,000 and the 95 million to help us with that. We will not need quite all of that money, but we will need most of it to make that ARP bid whole. Renovation replacement of the VOAG in Niobrara, anticipating that one to finish pretty quick. I have taken that one down to $0 because I'm not anticipating that we're going to need any design funds for that particular project. Teton Transportation Facility, I've actually dropped $2.5 million out of that line. We got really good bids on that transportation facility. And it's not very often you take money away from a Teton County project, but I dropped that $2.5 million. That's a pretty comfortable number. There'll probably be some more money coming back on that one that will come back into this $95 million budget or bucket. Pine Bluffs Elementary, we've got 4.9 million there for that addition. Have not made any changes to that. Rollins Elementary School K1, we've talked a little bit about this facility this morning. This is a new add. We have completed that Mercer study. I went ahead, since it met the criteria for the 95 million, I felt we had the room to do it. I went ahead and advanced the design only at this point in time using these funds so that we can get that design completed and be ready to go for construction next summer. We'll make a request for that money in the budget if need be, depending on what happens with some of these other projects we've talked about above. We may be able to actually fund that project out of this 95 million. So I'll be watching for that. And then we've got the 6% unanticipated of 5.7. This brings us to a total of 98.6 million, which is obviously above our 95. But these numbers tend to be pretty fluid and they're moving around. So we're just kind of holding at that point, and we'll decide how we distribute the unanticipated and some of those sort of things. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
Questions, committee, anything for Ms. Carlson on this? Okay, please proceed, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to move on to our next line item, and that's the current status of the inflationary funds. And I'm going to pass this off to Mr. Rexis.
Mr. Chairman, agenda item number 5 is the status of the current inflationary funds that we hold. And we have a report in here as well of funds we've expended. Back in 2023, the legislature appropriated $20,337,956 to supplement previous appropriations in what we call the inflationary fund. We've got a list of all the projects that qualified for that fund on the following page. I guess I should say pages. And everything that's currently in green has bid. And the things that are clear, the boxes that are clear have yet to be bid. In fact, one of them is still in the process of having a Mercer completed. So with that being said, in 2025, the legislature allowed us to carry over any remaining funds from that original appropriation towards any new capital construction project that needed supplemental funding. I just wanted to point that out because that's a lot of projects that are on our list. We'll add those projects to this list as needed. But until there's a need for that, we probably won't put them on the list just to show that they're eligible. We probably won't add them unless there's some supplemental funding pulled from this account in order to make their projects whole. There have been 6 different projects that have dipped into this account for supplemental funding. The first one is the Riverton Auditorium in Fremont County School District 25 for the amount of $1,122,338.32. The second one was for the new K-12 school construction in Sleep for Washakie County School District 2 in the amount of $1,187,155. We also supplemented the new Little Powder K-8 school in Campbell County School District 1 in the amount of $3,395,893. A component level project in Converse County School District 1 for their high school HVAC replacement in the amount of $20,703. A roof in Campbell County School District 1 for Gillette Wagon Wheel Elementary School in the amount of $33,250. And finally, in Converse County School District 1 for their Douglas Middle School HVAC in the amount of $1,182,603. I would add on that final project that we went through a pretty substantive process to try to get that project within budget. We had cost estimates all the way up to 95% design that showed that that project was going to be in the $4 million range, which was very near to what the original allocation was. However, that budget was created before COVID hit. The project was done after COVID. And when we opened bids for the first time, the project was in excess of $8 million. So we told them to go back to the drawing board. They cut some scope. They changed some of the components and they got better bids, but we still had to supplement that particular project. And with that being said, I guess I'll open up for any questions you might have.
So, Mr. Rexis, did we finally have Little Powder in the rear view mirror?
The old building is down. The new building is complete and occupied. We're just working through some final things on site reclamation with them, and we'll be able to close out that project and be done with it and move on.
Really? Okay. Good news.
Coming right up.
Yeah. Gosh. Glad we're gonna get it in under the wire before I'm not around anymore. Anything else, committee? Any questions? Okay, please proceed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, next item is the draft 2027-2028 supplemental budget considerations. Again, we'll be bringing a more detailed look at your next meeting in August and certainly be able to work with your LSO staff so that coming forward in the October meeting that you'll have something for a budget bill. So we're just going to work our way down through all of the things that we touch bases on in a normal budget. So our operations section of the budget, we're not anticipating any requests, so we've got a 0 in there. Charter school leases, again, I think we're good there. You may recall we got the charter school contingency fund, so that would help us within the item number 2. So $0 for charter school leases. The charter school contingency fund, we're not expecting anything there. There's, I believe, one new charter school here just Not too long ago, we were looking as maybe as three, but what we learned from WDE is there's maybe one that's coming forward. So I think we'll be good with the contingency fund. Modular leases, we work off of what they're budgeted at for the biennium. So the money that provided last year, there's nothing new on modular leases, so we should be a zero budget there.
Senator Rothfuss, go ahead.
Yes.
For the state authorized charter schools, you said one of the three is moving forward in the near future. Which one is that? Is it Alpine or?
Mr.
Ms. Carlson?
Chairman,
Go.
Senator, the Alpine will be open in the fall.
Uh-huh.
This is a new charter school application that just came through. It's for a charter school in Riverton.
Riverton.
That application is still under review and it's going through the process of consideration with
Okay.
the authorizing board.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator.
on that, can we get involved in the school facility side conversation like now with that school so we don't end up having them build an entirely new building that we're then on the hook for all the years ahead of us? Don't know why I'm suggesting that. I just want to make sure that this would be a great time for us to understand whether there is an adequate and available facility in Riverton, not 2 years from now once they've built a building. So, and I don't even know exactly where we are, Mr. Chairman, from a statutory standpoint of what we are and aren't allowed to do with regard to new charter schools being built and the leasing arrangements. But I feel like we need to be inserted in that conversation earlier and know what's going on and evaluate the community's resources instead of just assuming that we'll be on the hook for a new building.
Yeah, Ms. Carlson, just to add to that, I think that's appropriate that we at least have that visit. And maybe we'd carry that through to the second meeting and just have a conversation about whether or not we want to make a tweak or two. It just feels like the commission and this select committee ought to be involved in some manner if we're going to. And then the other piece on Riverton, my question would be, and we can again have this visit in the next meeting, but what does that do to all of the work that we've done over there in Fremont 25? I mean, we've poured millions into that school district to try to right size square footage and get rid of buildings. We're tearing them down and we're, tearing down Tonkin and all that stuff. And now we get a request for a charter school in on top of the work that we're already doing to modify an elementary school, middle school. I guess I'd like to know a little bit more about what we're up to there.
Yeah.
And it says that it's a capacity issue or anyway, any thoughts, Ms. Carlson?
Mr. Chairman, so first I'll address the capacity issue. So when Tonkin was going to be demolished, they had a lot of programs in the Tonkin Athletic Center, one of those being their alternative school, their high school alternative school. And so as they were looking to move all of the different programs in Tonkin out so it could be demolished, it went into a small building between the middle school and the high school. There was some money put in to renovate that, get that alternative school in there. A very small building, not big enough for the number of kids they need to put in that high school. So they've been way over capacity for a number of years. So we are doing the capacity Mercer for that facility. And so we are getting very close on that Mercer study. I mean, we've looked at an addition, we've looked at a brand new facility, we've looked at using the existing Rendezvous Elementary School, which was originally built as a junior high school, so it's very large. And then looking at the use of Jackson Elementary School. From everything I've seen, this remedy will come out with some remodel to Jackson Elementary School and move that alternative school into that facility with a recommendation then that we demolish Rendezvous. That's a large school, so it would be very hard, I would think, to put a charter in there. So that's kind of what's happened with those Mercer studies. I think once this is complete, this one's complete, we come in with the demolition of Rendezvous, they won't really have any facilities left. I suppose Rendezvous could potentially be an option, but it's a large school. I don't know that you'd want to go put a smaller school in there and then have to take care of that whole building. Now, I know there's community interest in keeping that gymnasium. So we have, Ms. Anderson and I have had a discussion with the folks in Riverton that are looking at the charter school opening there. The facility they are currently looking at, and maybe before I go down that road, it's really hard for, when we're in this application process, for them to try and nail down a facility. First of all, they don't know if they're going to get approved. Most often they are looking to lease. Well, you're not going to go lease a building a year before you know if you're going to get approved, and then a year before you would be able to move into it. So it's kind of the chicken and the egg thing. So they've been looking at facilities. They're looking at it's a preschool currently. It's a modular facility up in the northwest side of Riverton, not very far from where the new state building is there, just a little bit north along 8th Street there. That would serve as a temporary facility. They do have another couple small buildings there that they can move into. That one's probably fairly secure for them because this lady actually is the one that leases it now for a preschool, would be the same people that are involved in the charter school. Their plan is from there to look to build. So there's Wyoming Classical that we have here in Casper. So Wyoming Classical Casper, Wyoming Classical Alpine, and this will be Wyoming Classical Riverton. So they're coming through that Wyoming Classical school. And so that's what I can tell you about their current plans for facilities. We tried to explain the process and the leasing to them.
Senator Rothfuss.
With Rendezvous, you said it's relatively large. Would we be demolishing it were it not for declining enrollment?
It has a condition issue. It would need some work. I think you can see where we've got funding in there for sanitary sewer. We had a component project. We have been holding on that and not moving that project forward because we're anticipating it'll probably be demolished and didn't want to that sanitary sewer. So we're trying to limp it along, but the condition of that facility is not great. It's a 1960s building. The bones are good. You know, it was good construction, but
Okay.
conditions not overall real
Do we
good.
know what the target size, I mean, the new charter school, assuming that they get their charter, which I expect everyone will get their charter, usually starts at a certain size, but then has an intended growth schedule. And I don't know what they're intending to grow to relative to the size of Rendezvous. I mean, my expectation is what we're going to be paying for in this circumstances. We will pay $5 million or whatever it is to demolish Rendezvous. And then a new building will be built and we will effectively pay for over some lease time the operation of that school. So we'll pay the full lease cost similar to what we are doing here in town, which is like a couple $1 million a year. And then the state of Wyoming won't even own the asset, and we will have demolished an asset. And by that point in time, they will have grown enough that they probably want a bigger school or something along those lines. So as I'm thinking about it, just from the 20-year perspective, total cost of ownership, so to speak, from the state to operate that school or to facilitate the operation of that school, I struggle initially to believe that what I just described is the most cost-effective remedy. But maybe it is. I guess it would be frightening if it is. that that's as good as we can do, but if we can look into that more, and I do understand that they don't even know if they're going to have their charter yet, but I don't know, Mr. Chairman, we need to do something about this blank check leasing, and the approach we have right now scares me.
Yeah, Senator, I think that's well put. And I think you've expressed some of the concerns that some of us legislators have had on this front. I'm not comfortable being the chairman of a school facilities committee when we're building schools that we don't have any input whatsoever. But then we're on the hook to pay the lease on them for ad infinitum from this point forward. That doesn't seem quite right to me. I would prefer that the three of you have something to do with what's being laid on the ground up there, especially, like I said, in Riverton 25, we have put a lot of state resources in up there to try to help that district get squared away. Happy to do it. We've fought hard on the chamber floor to get all that done. But this idea of putting a school on the ground that we have no input into, I hope you can understand why that gives us a little trepidation. Does that make sense, Ms. Carlson?
Mr. Chairman, I certainly can understand that. You know, we have looked at the rendezvous school now for both these Mercers that we're doing in Fremont County as we're trying to right size them. So one of those options was put the elementary school right back in that facility. We were going to have to go in and demo a good portion of that. When we went through it, it just was not the most cost-effective remedy to put the elementary school in there. I did not put the demolition funds in last year's request because I knew we had the Fremont our Frontier Academy coming through the process. I said, that's got to be an option. Does that make sense? And so we have studied it again. Is probably our number 2 choice would be to put them in that school. But again, we would come in and demo quite a bit of it. I certainly understand the school, the concerns with the charter schools and what they are doing. I think as I articulated before, you know, we're paying that lease, whether they go into an old building or a new building, we would be paying the same amount because it's based on the ADM of the kids that they're putting in there. So now in this case, it would be, if it was still a district-owned building, then we wouldn't be. But again, if we put, you know, 200 kids in a school that'll hold 400 or 500, we're keeping a lot of excess square footage that we have to pay to take care of with major maintenance. So it's a dilemma.
So, yeah, I really appreciate that, Ms. Carlson. Thanks. I know it's a tough situation up there. But I would just point out on the state construction side of things, we've worked very hard to put facilities like this on the ground that we own so that we don't have to pay all those lease payments. This building is about 5 years from being paid for. So I've really taken great pride in pushing hard on that front, and it's really worked on the state level, I think, with all of your help. But I don't feel like we're quite in the sweet spot with respect to the building of our charter schools without any input from state construction. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to get in that ballgame. That's private. That's private industry. That's why the legislature set it up that way. It's separate from the school districts. If we get into that ballgame, you better hold on to your pocketbook. Because they're getting into older buildings, and if we want to set it up, you got to meet the adequacy standards. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to be fixing up a bunch of stuff that they're in now, not just paying a lease. So better be careful.
Representative Provenza.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess I understand that. My concern though is now we have, it's coming back to the question about insurance, then we can just buy a new building, the state's going to pay for it. I mean, I think we as the legislature did not articulate or did not think through the consequences of saying that you get to essentially build your private school with my public money.
You know, there's, Mr. Chairman,
So
We've,
Director, yeah, I appreciate your thought.
you know, I am frustrated on it because we're a pieces part of this. There's a board of this. There's the WDE part. There's the education committee. There's the select committee on school facilities. And I stated last year, I think we ought to have a bigger group meeting on this. So somebody's not doing something over here that's affecting somebody over here and over here. And I know the governor's on board with that also.
Yeah.
And that has not happened, and we're piecing parting this stuff together. And we do not have the staff in my department to take that on unequivocally.
Yeah.
You'd have to double the staff on the school side.
Yeah, I think that's very well stated too, Director. I get that. I'm sure you've been around the block a few times with me, and you know that the frustration that we're expressing a little bit, not necessarily shared by the entire committee. It maybe isn't. Maybe we're right in the sweet spot of exactly where Wyoming wants to be. People can just come in and build a school and then hand us the lease payment bill and we pay it. And maybe that's where we need to be. I don't know. Ms. Carlson.
Mr. Chairman, I do think, and we had the whole charter school section in the front here, and we put together, Ms. Anderson and her staff put together a guide really on how that lease works. You know, there are a lot of lesser than, so we don't just pay their lease. We go in, we look at the size of the building, we look at what their ADM is running, we look, and then we put that in our allowable square foot calculator. So we don't just pay them for whatever they have. We take the lesser of those two, and then we wait until we see their lease payment, and then we pay the lesser of than those two. So there's two lesser thans. And so we are assessing that. We don't necessarily pay their entire lease. It's all based on their ADM, size of their facility. So we're evaluating all that, and she did a really nice job with that. I think it would be educational, and we had a good presentation. I know that will probably come back where we'll tour the charter school, and we'd happily talk through that. We did give a presentation on that guide with the authorizing board, and then they asked us to meet with the Wyoming Classical Riverton folks to explain to them how the process works. It's complex. It actually takes an awful lot of Laura's and my time to work with these charter schools on their leases.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and thank you.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, Ms. Carlson, and maybe we've got enough steps in there. I'm sensitive to the fact that we don't have a lot of help in our agencies, so, you know, points well taken. Senator Rothfuss.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to add on to that and say, I mean, you think back to when, for example, Laramie County was pretty significantly, you know, overpopulation and was struggling with that. They didn't have the capacity to just build a building and send us the bill for the lease payment, right? So we've effectively created a strange inequity here. Our school districts do not have the capacity to do what our charter schools are now able to do. And with our system for charter schools, they simply will get paid if they right size it as you indicated. It's got to be appropriate, but at the end of the day, we saw it over here. I mean, we never heard about that building being built. I drove by it. That's how I found out it existed. And I was like, why is there a new building on Robertson Road here? What is that building? And if it were a traditional public school, it would have gone through a 5-year process through this committee, and we would have carefully deliberated over how it would be built, what it would be like, what the budget would be. And that inequity is of concern to me. At the same time, the fact that it's an unconstrained budget is of concern. Everywhere else we constrain the budget, we have authority over the budget. On that item, we just have to pay the bill. And I don't think we have any capacity to do otherwise. So we do need to think this through. I'm very sensitive to director's concerns, though, about you don't have the capacity to do all of this work that we're describing. And we probably don't want to take it on. But we need to find something, Mr. Chairman, that is equitable and provides us with the capacity to constrain that growth, recognizing that it's not just a zero-sum game where we're taking some money out of one school and moving it over to another. It's always additive, because we still have to fully fund this school operation over here. It leads to declining enrollment. We just talked the first half of the day about how that hurts the major maintenance on the original school. Now we're paying for full major maintenance on the new school effectively through the lease, because we basically calculate that amount of money and inject it into the lease as well as routine maintenance. So all of that's going in there based on the allowable ADM. And there's no end in sight to this increase, Mr. Chairman. So somehow this committee needs to be, and you need to be in the process in a way that isn't just a blank check. And this is something I guess I'd ask you to all think about, and for us to talk more about, how do we get to the point where we're engaged in a way other than the checkbook?
So, Ms. Carlson, and we'll move on here pretty quickly, but so here's just a couple of further thoughts. I want the committee to know this is not a position ideologically or otherwise. This is a policy consideration for this committee, in my opinion. And it involves our commission as well. Most of us voted for this school choice of any kind. You know, we're supportive of that. But I think that it's our duty to be fiscally responsible, and it just kind of feels like we've got an outlier. And, you know, we drill down. I made the comment in front of appropriations and a few others, as you said, Director, there isn't anything that is more fully vetted than the School Facilities Select Committee bill by the time it goes to the legislature. It's been through every district. It's been through our commission. It's been through this select committee. And then it finally goes, and then it is reviewed by the Appropriations Committee. Proud of that. But there's a piece of it. You know what I'm saying? There's just a piece of it. So I just think we ought to all be thinking about that. That is not casting a shadow at the opportunity for charter schools. It has nothing to do with that. It only has to do with the School Facilities Committee. What do we want to do with these facilities? Are we comfortable with where we are? And maybe we are. I don't know. It just feels like, I've thought about it a lot, you know, these past several months. It just feels like we've got an outlier. So thank you for making a note of that and thinking about it. And maybe you can even make a recommendation back to us, something that we might be doing or you might be able to do that gives us a little more comfort. Does that make sense? Thank you for allowing us to visit for a minute. Director, back to you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think I concluded with item number 4 there on the modular leases. We're not looking at asking for any money for that particular budget item. Engineering and technology, nothing there, so no request, 0 again. Planning, commission supplemental, we show a $0 there, but I would like to have a conversation with this committee, and we're going to have that tomorrow with the commission on, so what are we looking at for future Mercer studies? For a decade at least, this committee, the state has been focused on educational buildings. We know there's an awful lot of other buildings out there. There's transportation buildings, there's admin buildings. In the last couple of years, we've addressed 3 or 4 or 5. Some of those turned out to be more of a component request, even though there was additional money given for basically a reconstruction. We turned that money back last year to joint appropriations on 2 transportation buildings, some about a $20 million on those 2. We've got a couple more we're coming back on, but we do have an awful lot of non-educational buildings that are hitting that 0.3 level. So from, I guess, a policy decision or policy, how would you like us to proceed in looking at those? Maybe next meeting, we can bring you a list of those type of projects, kind of where they're at. Again, they're at the 0.3. They aren't necessarily a reconstruction, but that has not been something that the state has really taken a role on heavily in the past. It was always inferred that we would at some day when we catch up on the educational buildings. And we seem to be approaching that now, particularly with the capacity going down, because we had in the past a lot of capacity growth projects going. So that may be something, Mr. Chairman, at the next meeting, we talk about. Maybe there needs to be an add from that roughly 2.5 million we have left out of the 5, if we start addressing a bunch more non-educational buildings. We might be able to go through this next year, the next part, but maybe in the next year out, certainly we'd be coming probably looking for some more money to do these Mercer studies besides the 5 million that was provided back in 23. So,
Well, you know, Director, it kind of makes sense. And you mentioned earlier today, all the work that's been done on capacity and condition. That's been our focus for a long time, committee. And it stands to reason that we probably are getting to the point that we've got to look at all those other facilities. So appreciate the heads up. Back to you.
The next item is design phase projects. As Ms. Carlson said, on some previous discussion on the Mercer and such forth. We've got Fremont 25 Frontier Academy that we'd be potentially coming forward with a request for design money for that. The next item is the construction phase of projects. We talked last year about East High in Cheyenne, Laramie 1. We're currently doing the design. We held off asking for the construction like we normally do because there was so many different options that a designer may come up with to address what needed to be done there, that we wanted to get a better dollar figure. So that, again, would be a project moving forward. And then Carbon 1 Elementary, Rollins Elementary K1, that was previously talked about, we might be able to find some money out of that 95 million, depending on how that comes through to complete that. If not, be a request there, fairly small amount for that particular school.
Is that just a design?
That would be construction.
That would be construction.
That would be construction, yes.
It's about probably $2.5 to $3 million.
Yep.
Okay.
Then safety and security funds. We got the 10 million last year. We've asked the districts to go back and look at their number 1, number 2 requests, make sure they're solid with that for their particular districts. When we went out and asked for that last year, I think we were in about that $34-35 million range. We got 10. In our tour that we've been taking, we've heard from a couple of districts that did not submit anything. And the reason for that is they were using some funds out of their pre-97 money that they now no longer can use. So they may want to submit for a safety security project. So I don't know exactly where that's going to look at. Philosophically, maybe a little bit of guidance from yourselves and our commission. So we're looking probably somewhere in the neighborhood 25-30 million there. Is what's identified. Do we want to go for that total amount, half of that amount? This last year we went with 10 million. We're still in the process of the commission putting, how we're going to roll that out. There was language in that we had to set up a program where the commission would receive those requests from the districts, and then they take a look at that and prioritize that $10 million worth of work. So Again, probably there will be a request. I'm just not sure exactly how much. Next one is component level funding. Again, as I mentioned this morning, probably looking in that $30 million range. Again, we're trying to cut down that percentage of districts that are out of whack with the amount of major maintenance. And again, we've made pretty tremendous strides. I wouldn't have thought myself we'd have gone from 100% on one district. Now we're down. I think we had 2 or 3 districts that were like 200%. The other ones are down a little bit underneath that. So I think we can, if we get that 30 million in there, we'll make some more headway in that, certainly. And so I feel we're in pretty good shape with major maintenance if we can particularly do something with the bill again and run the 115 to 135. Demolition projects. In Lander, Fremont 1, their North Elementary School, that would be a demo and abate. That's a project that we went and looked at last fall with the commission, I think the September meeting. They've been out of that building for quite a few years and just using it for storage and those sort of things, and they'd like to take that off of their inventory. Albany 1, the Laramie Athletic Field Stadium, demolition and abatement. I believe that's the old high school, right?
Stadium.
Yeah, the old stadium that was still there, so. Yeah. Then Campbell 1, Campbell High School abatement. That project is going to take a number of years to get done. However, part of the existing building is actually where we need to build the new building. So it isn't a project we can wait for another couple years out. So we need to have that. Oh, is it?
No, you're thinking of ARP.
Oh, okay. Yep. Excuse me. Campbell High School abatement. We asked for the money for demo already through the design. We're doing a design process. We're getting the abatement. So we'll have that abatement ask. Sweetwater 1, Rock Springs, same thing. Looking through the design process of what that abatement would be to add towards the demolition that's funded for that project, currently funded.
Just for clarification, Director, when you talk abatement, you're talking about just insulation products or
It's your asbestos.
Yeah,
hazardous
all the
materials that are in
asbestos.
there. Yeah.
anything further from that? It's just the friability of asbestos removal, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Unanticipated funds, that would come back to your demo, your design, your component projects, and then your construction projects. That's our standard 6% that we ask for there. So that would be based upon those particular items. Major maintenance funds. Every year we're required to look at that major maintenance request and update that based on ADM changes, upon cost of inflation, your CRV values changing. We received funding last year for that, but it was actually from the previous supplemental session. That was about 1.1 million from the last one. So that generally is not a big ask. It's just kind of a catch up based on what's happening with changes in the schools themselves, as well as inflationary costs. Land Opportunity Fund. Right now, we've got about 605,000 in there. We try to keep somewhere between 750,000 and $1 million in that account, so that as the opportunity comes up to purchase some land around a school or whatever, we have that available, and it can pretty quickly happen. Right now, we're looking at a potential purchase. Don't know what that's going to be in Laramie 1. So probably not a lot of ask there. Couple 100,000, 300,000 maybe to get that back up in to where we traditionally try and hold that. Inflationary fund. Right now we've got, as was mentioned earlier under Shelby's presentation, we've got about little over 13 million, 13.4 million available. We've got, we let the first big project in Laramie won and our bids were good there. Next month, we've got another one coming up, but we also have the two big high schools. We've got the transportation facility. So we've got a lot of big projects starting to kick off. We'll kind of wait and see how those are going, what those look like, and may or may not ask for any addition there. Right now, not sure. Hopefully, we won't need to make a request and we've got enough with that 13 million at this point in time. Then finally, there's facilities with an ongoing Mercer studies. Shelby talked about those earlier that may result in some design or construction. The outcome of what happens on these three could kind of fill back in on those items, be it from design through construction, unanticipated, et cetera. So just kind of a high level. Right now, we're going to work through that and refine those and try to have those pretty well refined for the committee to take a look at their next meeting. So we have to have it approved by the commission in July. So we'll have a final budget that was approved by the commission for your August meeting. And that concludes it. Mr.
Director,
Chairman.
thank you. Appreciate it. Lots of dialogue interspersed and appreciate you giving us the opportunity for that. Anything additional, Mr. Rexis? Ms. Carlson? Okay, let's, we are kind of to a spot where we like to offer any public comment. So let's do that. And then we'll come back. We want to talk some infrastructure in a little bit, Director. That's the last thing on our list for today. And we'll do that after we get any public comment. Any public comment on all the updates that were shared? Anybody in the room? Do we have anybody online, actually?
No, you do not, Mr. Chairman.
One more time. Anybody? Okay, we'll close public comment. Let's take a 10-minute break and we will come back for the final topic on the agenda. I think it's the final one, infrastructure requirements. And Dell, we'll come back to you. Let's take 10 minutes. Okay, folks, let's spur the horse to the finish line. We want to take up infrastructure requirements. This was a requested interim topic, which was approved by our management council for us to take a look at an issue that our agency wanted to bring to us. So welcome back, Director. Appreciate all you guys' efforts today. Ms. Carlson, Mr. Rexis, good to see you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item is something that we're running into on construction projects, and it's affecting our budget runs. And it's been around forever. We've run into it, I'm sure, before I became director back in even 2015. But what I'd like to do is offer this up as maybe a discussion we can have on how we can be more proactive and work with the districts and the local governments when we're establishing or purchasing land and or when we're looking at the construction or the design phase on before we come and ask for construction money for construction projects. And what we're finding across the state is there's a number of districts that have already have land. They got the land a long time ago, or when there's a new subdivision coming in, they'll work with the subdivider in the city and they'll parse out a piece of land for a new school. And one of the things that typically happens there is it's not the best piece of land within that subdivision. And so then when we go to build on the thing,
What?
yeah, we end up with a bunch of costs that I think that by being more proactive on the front end, sitting down with the city and county and saying, where's the utilities and how far do we got to run utilities? What's the drainage situation? What's the road situation when we buy this land? We'll probably end up paying a little more for the land, but I think when you look at the long run and the long-term costs of that, we'd be much better off in paying that extra amount for that land. We've got a project right now in Laramie 1. It's the new 5-6. It was a piece of land that the district already owns. It's in an area where there's undeveloped land. And when we're in the design phase, we're working through that project. And it turns out the drainage for a lot of that land out around there runs down through this property. And then it's a low spot. That's why it runs down through that property. And then we're looking at potential for a pump situation to pump water out of there once it comes in from around that outside the school's
Spell
property.
pylon with a hyphen or?
Yeah. So anyway, that's just, I think, one example. We've got a couple of the high schools, or not high schools, but our other elementaries in Cheyenne where, we're being asked to do infrastructure on roadways and things like that leading to, we run into situations and rightly so where, we're increasing the traffic and there's, the city's going to come and say, well, you need to add a traffic signal or something like that. And those are not inexpensive items to be tackling. But it could be many years down the road from when that land was originally purchased, and then we're starting the process. And those creep up on us. Last year in the session, we did ask for some money to help augment that in the project there in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
Recently on the 5-6, YDOT said with the signal interchange that was going to be required, and this is down on the South Greeley Highway, a big signal was going to be very expensive. They'd go ahead and eat that cost because it wasn't just a school, but it was getting to that driver point. But we have had to put in, for example, in Little Powder, putting in those turn lanes on that particular project. And so that's typically not something that we look at when we're looking at those designs on the front end. We're looking at the square foot of the building and maybe some of the grading depending on the terrain, where the utilities at. But Munger Mountain's another good one in Jackson. We ended up running the sewer line for a couple, 3 or 4 miles in that particular one. And we were looking at a potential, well, the local government came in and said, can you upsize that line? Because we may be able to tie in other folks into that. That hasn't happened yet. And so there is no payback in being able to do that, but the state of Wyoming funded that additional money to run that sewer line for a couple, 3 miles because there's nothing out there. Teton County right now is working with the county, or Teton School District 1 is working with Teton County to try and form a board to take that on and take that burden off of the Teton County School District right now. Right now, they're having to maintain and do all of that for that project again. And so trying to work through those processes, I think it'd be much better if we get more proactive. I think it was about 2018, for example, we were hearing complaints from local government that, we were funding a bunch of these capital construction projects, the state was for schools, and they knew nothing about it. It wasn't coming. So, we've started a process now where, well, back then, that we've continued on, that when we get funding from the state and it comes through, we send out letters to the local government saying, hey, you might want to contact and get in touch with your local school district. We were given funding for this XYZ project and could have impacts with your community. Again, I think the next step of that is probably trying to be more proactive on building and even work for us with the cities and counties before we even come ask for that design money. Because once we're into that design, it's almost too late. We're down that if we got to ask for, a couple million, in some cases, $5 million extra to do some of this infrastructure type of work. So that's really what this request was spawned from. We met, and Mr. Chairman, I believe you came down for that. We met with Utah and looked at some of their statutes, and they've got some statutes that talk about what the cities and counties can force, push that the schools must do. Another one that we see that, and I'm not a big fan of it, whether it's schools or state government in general, I don't think they even know how to do it on private stuff because of the downstream effects. But that is where they require islands out in parking lots and the trees and all of that. You try to plow that in the winter, you try to maintain it, you try to get the proper drainage so stuff drains. If you got a bunch of islands and curb and gutter, you're going to have low spots, high spots. Your asphalt, your concrete's going to deteriorate quicker. You break them up. You're digging stuff up because the water line breaks. And we get that quite often on projects. And so, yes, should we do some? I agree. Make it look good. But to what level do we need to go to? I've seen projects where we don't have enough space on the project based on we got a big building, we got the parking lot and things like that, to where based on acreage size, you got to plant so many trees. We can't even plant all the trees on there. So what we do is we just give the money to the city to go plant trees somewhere else, but we're paying for it as the state of Wyoming on these projects. It really varies from community to community. I think some of your larger communities are more progressive on those type of issues versus a smaller community. And as far as saying you need to have bike paths or all of that in conjunction with the schools, you don't see that in a lot of your smaller communities, but it's something that is often there on some of your larger communities around the state. So one of the questions we get asked, why does it cost so much to build your schools? Every session we get that question. How come it costs so much to build these schools? Well, that's something that adds in there, and $1 million here and $2 million there, and you're talking some real money, on these projects.
So the parking lot piece was spoken like a longtime civil engineer.
Yeah, YDOT
I
guy.
might have been associated with highways. And stuff.
Yeah.
Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dell, I thought we had in statute that schools were effectively exempted from those local zoning and construction requirements, school buildings specifically, and that all we had to do was adhere to our standards where we had similar but not necessarily identical standards. And I could be misremembering that, but that was my recollection, that we weren't, obviously we had to tie into the sewer, et cetera, but from how many trees do you have to put in, and what types of curb and gutter and everything else do you have to put in? I thought we only had to follow our own standards statutorily that we have for school facilities. Am I misremembering that or misunderstanding that? Maybe I see Matt wants to weigh in too.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I am not aware of that, and that's kind of where we're having this discussion today. I don't know if Phil has to-
Mr. Chairman, are you recalling
uh,
the incinerator office? I think
go
there was a
ahead.
provision back in 2017, 2018 timeframe where private schools were exempt from county regulations that were in excess of school facility requirements. And I can certainly pull up that legislation, but it basically did not require anything beyond what a normal school or a public school would have to adhere to in those county provisions or local provisions. I can certainly pull that legislation, but
Mr. Chairman,
Wonder who drafted.
that is what I'm remembering from. That was the conversation. But my recollection was that in that circumstance, we gave the same educational privilege to the private schools as we did the public schools, and that public school provision was effectively a preemption. But I could be wrong. It could be more what you're saying, which is that
Just that one piece. yeah.
that whatever the community had for standards would be equivalently applied. But I thought we had a carve out where our own standards were what we built to, not the standards of the community for a school. Looks like Tanya has read it now, maybe. We'll see.
Ms. Heidford?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Rothfuss, you could be, if you take a look at 2115, 115A, there's a provision that states if a building owned by a district meets the applicable standards under the subsection for use by the district to educate students and was previously used for the purpose of educating students, no municipal or county zoning requirement shall be construed or applied so as to prevent the district from using the building for the purpose of educating students, and it goes on and on. But I don't know that that applies necessarily to a new school building, because it states if a building that is owned by the school district.
Gotcha.
Is that the section you're recalling?
I don't think so. I think it was the one for new buildings, and it was whatever we were drafting into back with the Teton County private school. And I don't remember exactly where that was at, but Senator Landon and I worked on that legislation, and it probably was about the timeline, the 17 timeline.
Yeah.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I found the bill. It's 2019 Senate File 49, County Zoning Authority in Private Schools. It amended Wyoming Statute 185201 to create an exception to zoning authority for boards of county commissioners for private schools.
I think at issue, Mr. Wellmarth up there, that was an issue in Teton County.
That's correct.
And so Senator Rothfuss and I spent, 4 or 5 nights trying to put that together, and it worked, and we managed to get that legislation passed. But I don't think we're remembering anything that gets into what the director's talking about.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't think it does. And basically the amendment provided the following language: no zoning resolution or plan shall regulate and restrict the location and use of buildings and structures and the use, condition, or use or occupancy of lands for the use of a private school as defined in Wyoming Statute 214101A3 in a manner indifferent from a public school, providing that the private school is certified by the professional engineer and architect of record for the private school as being substantially similar to School Facility Commission guidelines for education buildings and siding, and is designed to be constructed with appropriate materials, means, and methods, has a capacity for 50 students or more, and is owned and operated by a not-for-profit entity. So it just I don't think it fits within the specific example here, that it is really limited to a private school, not all schools.
And Mr. Chairman, I had thought though that when we were working on that, and maybe it was what Ms. Heitrek was pointing to, that we were effectively matching the public school authority through this paragraph. And maybe we'll need to dig into it a little bit more and see, but
Yeah.
I do understand the point, so.
So to just dovetail off of that, Director, what, you mentioned one particular statute over in Utah that caught your attention. Are there other things that you ran across that they're doing that we might want to consider? Because we could certainly stand up a couple of thoughts, and take them up in August, for example.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this from that would be the second page in. And we have potential legislation could include language similar to the following. In collaboration with State Construction Department and School District shall coordinate the siding of the new school building and facility with local government entity in which the school is to be located. Avoid or mitigate existing or potential traffic hazards, including consideration of the impacts of a new facility and the future highways, maximize school, student, and site safety. Leverage the local knowledge, the availability of infrastructure at the proposed site to reduce utility costs to the project for water, sewer, power, irrigation, et cetera, to avoid the mitigation disruption of local utility systems. And then number 2 is the local government agency may not impose requirements for landscaping, fencing, aesthetic considerations, construction methods, or materials in addition, or additional building inspections, local government building codes, buildings for use for educational purposes, or the placement or use of temporary classroom facilities. Item number B is require the school district to participate in the cost of any roadway or sidewalk, or study on the impact of a school or on the roadway or sidewalk that is not reasonably necessary for the safety of school children and not located on or contiguous to the school property unless the roadway work or sidewalk is required to connect or otherwise isolate school site roadway. So that was kind of a high level out of the Utah stuff. I actually got a hold of Utah because the stuff that they presented for us for our meeting, it was restricted because it was a proposed bill that they hadn't passed. We got a hold of them a couple weeks ago. That bill did pass, and so we have their actual language now.
So
that
it
they did
says
in
to me,
Utah.
Director, that they've run into some of the same things that you're describing. And they indicated that, but you're right. I remember they really couldn't talk about the content of the bill, and this must have been it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Committee, I think, as we consider at the end of the day, any directives, it seems pretty reasonable to me that we continue this conversation. I do think that that maybe we've been asked to do some extra things to put some schools in place. Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, I guess a couple of questions. Is it a case of the city or county imposing the requirements and saying you have to do these things? And if so, why is there not some discussion on what are the broader impacts? Try to walk me through what some of those conversations are, because I do recall, for instance, in Cheyenne, there's a developer, the developer of Saddle Ridge installed water line in Pershing and had a recapture agreement that anybody that attached to that for a period of, I don't know, 25 years had to pay a portion of the cost there. And you mentioned that briefly in here. So number one, are recapture agreements really not feasible? Number two, is there, is it just the, say, street infrastructure, road infrastructure? Or well, I'll stop there. Let's talk about recapture first. What kind of issues are you seeing with that? Because it seems to me like that could be part of a negotiation process with the city to say, let's do a recapture agreement and get you some of those funds back.
Mr. Chairman, we have explored that in a number of cases. So Teton County, that's part of it, in talking with on the Munger Mountain School. So the new game and fish housing is actually tied into that, and they have a recapture on that. YDOT may be putting some employee housing in, and so I'm guessing might be some recapture on that. But the original intent is they had some sewer issues with a larger trailer park just south of the Snake River on the east side of the highway. And that never came to fruition to have them hook into that. And so it's kind of set there. It's just recently with the game and fish stuff that any recapture has started back through that. We had some recapture agreements in Rollins years ago with a subdivider that was going to hook in, and then he went under. And so we never recaptured anything out of that extra stuff that was put in there. So we've had a few instances like that where we've done recaptures. We had a similar situation, I believe, here in on one of the schools in Casper, and the developers did pay that back over time for that land. But I think, part of it is in some of these, and I think the good example is going to be this 5-6. We're almost looked at, the school district, the school is looked at as the developer. And we're not. We bought a piece of the land. We happen to be the first ones going in. So we've got to run water lines, sewer lines, a bunch of this drainage stuff is coming in. And because we're first in, we're taking care of that. Can you get a recapture? Perhaps, perhaps not. I don't know. And sometimes even when we have the agreements, it doesn't ever pan out to do that, particularly in a timely manner to be able to do that. But we do look at that whenever we get the opportunity to. Rock Springs, I think, is a good example of what the city is saying needs to be done. When we, back in the 2017-18 timeframe, and we did the project where we built part of the building out at that site already, we had the preliminary plan development was what was the entire building going to look like, how many students were going to be there. We're just building basically their CTE stuff out there right now. And the city, and I lived in Rock Springs for 9 years, and my oldest daughter graduated from high school there. There is no parking around that high school. And so everybody parks in the neighborhood, and it has been a 50-year run and gun battle, literally, from people parking at all the houses. Whenever there's an event, people come from out of town. They don't know any different that you need an A parking permit to park on the block or 2 blocks away or 3 blocks away. I mean, right across from the high school, because there is no parking in that lot. So they're sensitive to that. So now we get the new high school, and the requirement that we're looking at, and we thought we had it worked out, but it's changed in city council stuff. Now we're, 4 or 5. And so we're getting ready to work this. And now they're wanting us to build enough parking that if we're having a football game, while we're having a basketball game, while we're having the graduation, while we're, everything that school can accommodate, there's enough parking for that, including the students, because there wasn't at the other one. Well, we've got, I think, a fairly generous parking thing, but this is like 4 times as much. And so now it's driving acres and acres of parking lot, which then you have your stormwater stuff kicks in. And so now these retention ponds and on and on and on, which just drives costs. And so they're going through that negotiation. Like say, the outcome of it previously is we were going to still build a lot more than what we had in our standards, but certainly not where we're at starting again in phase 2 of this thing. And all of that land actually in there, they're worried about, well, some of the drainage, this, and it's all internal to what the school owns. It's a great big campus complex. They already have a number of schools there. And it's gonna be a substantial amount of money.
Senator Roth.
We got to do that.
Mr. Chairman, and addressing that point, and I didn't ask about Rock Springs, whether Rock Springs had done their community process for the high school to evaluate whether they needed any enhancements, et cetera. What you just described is an enhancement, right? They need to bond for that. And it's not up to us to fund a circumstance where they have a big enough parking lot for all of their large events. It's up to us to fund parking for their students at the school and the teachers that are teaching at the school. I'm going to guess that Rock Springs isn't bonding a single dollar for that high school. Is that accurate?
No, I think they are because they're
Are
gonna
they?
have a swimming pool and
They
things like
are.
that, yeah.
Good. So the
Yep.
community was engaged potentially in
Yeah.
that. I think these are great discussion points though going into it of that's a good enhancement. And I think that's the way to present it, right? Going back to our adequacy standards. It makes a lot of sense to want that. And you know, Laramie High School, also we struggled with enough parking and
Right.
it was a challenge, something we worked through, but not the state's responsibility to build it enough that the entire community can show up at the high school because you're having 3 events at the same time. That really is a great thing to have for the enhancement conversation. So I hope you're pushing back on that one pretty well, because I don't feel like that ends up being the state's responsibility when it's going above and beyond.
Mr. Chairman.
So Mr. Resch, just hang on real quickly. And I apologize, Representative Garrett. I didn't offer you a follow-up. I want to come back to where you were going to, so I apologize for that. Back to the parking lot, which kind of led to this. So go ahead, Mr. Rex.
I just wanted to clarify that it's not necessarily the district that's on board with this. They don't want to maintain or repair that large of a parking lot. So this is purely driven by the local jurisdiction. And so it's difficult for
Yeah.
us, because at what point do we draw the line and pick and choose what requirements from the AHJ we're going to allow and which ones we're not? That's really the
Gotcha.
question in the
That's
issue.
helpful. Thank
So
you.
maybe the question would be on behalf of the facilities committee, do you want a high school?
And I'm sorry, Representative, to interrupt you. I
Representative
apologize.
Garrett, let's come back to, we were on the topic of recapture and some issues related to where is some of this coming from? So go ahead.
Well, and actually it's some other, another direction as well. So you had mentioned at some point some, paying some money or, for greenway or bike path or something expansion. Was that because of park fees or something? What, can you explain that a little bit? I didn't quite catch what you were saying there.
Well, here in Casper, when they built the trade, I don't know if they call it the trade school out.
The CAP school that.
Yeah, basically it's where they have the nursing, and they have their, the innovations.
Yeah.
So it's over towards. the
Over there by the steeple.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of open land out there, and the city had a bike path that runs along the south belt loop, or the east belt loop, I guess it is. And then there's build up to the south, so there's this dead space in there. So to get that finally through, there was an agreement that would be connected across there. Well, it's really, to me, it's kind of pinching your nose to get the project through. But it's this building right here we're sitting in, there was big negotiations and discussions going on what all the upgrades they wanted down the center of the street out here and along I mean, you sat in on those meetings. I don't know how many meetings we came up to, and as the state, to talk about all the enhancements they wanted for this area of the community, for this building.
Yeah.
Rock Springs, I actually went out, I believe, 3 different times and met with the city council and the school board when we had the previous discussions on the parking lot. And so I was a little dumbfounded when it came back up because I thought it was done, but when I think about it, there's change in leadership and no council and new school board and everything else. But yeah, and it's,
Well, we really benefited, Director, from the idea of putting those task forces together, which Representative Walters and I chaired the one for this building. And we were able to, I think, have some major impacts along the way. And I think that goes back to what Senator Roth was asking earlier. Do we have this community group involved here? You know, conceptually, I can remember when we passed that bill, it was this committee that passed that bill to say, if you're going to build a new school, you have to involve your community. And that's where the community, I think, can have an impact. And Director, maybe you can weigh in on that. It just seems like those are the people who can push back against, we're not going to require that big of a parking lot, or we're not going to build the school. They may not build this school for us if we put a gun to their head. So I don't know.
and Mr. Chairman, again, that comes back to, I think where I would like to head with this is more of a proactive on the front end, having some of those discussions. Again, I was surprised at the city, you know, I don't know all the city's ordinances for every town in the state. And to do all that ahead of time when we're just looking at a project moving forward. And in some cases, Munger Mountain, they didn't have a choice on the land. I mean, that was the only piece of land they could find in the whole county. And they looked at that for years, and it came up like a month and a half before it was actually after all the budget's been through JAC, it came up between the JAC meetings and the session. And because it was known forever, we got special funding in the session. They added it to the bill to buy the land because it's the only land there. Well, it's got to have a sewer line, and it's 4 or 5 miles long to run the sewer line, and multiple pump stations and lift stations in it and everything else. It certainly wasn't inexpensive. And so again, that was kind of an oddball because it happens. But if we have the chance to plan this more, let's have these meetings where everybody's involved in it, and we can, when we come to you, we have a better budget item. Because I just, you know, here we are on these 2 elementaries where we're working through the design. We're trying to get the design done. We got the funding for the capital construction. And if we got to delay a year or a year and a half to come ask for more budget money to get that through, you're going to pay $4 or $5 million in inflation. And it might only be $1 million ask from the city, but it's $1 million more than I got in the budget. And some way we're losing $3 million. And so we'd be better off paying the $1 million, but we don't have it. And so again, I think something that allows, I guess, those negotiations up front. What do we look at with recapture? Is this really the best site? Could we move it closer to the roadway, maybe a 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, and save all that infrastructure, you know, utilities, everything else that we'd put in? What size lines? It'd be good to know that we're the first ones there, so they want this bigger line than we normally have because maybe in the next 20 years, there's going to be all this other housing come in. And so those are the things that we run into. And so their planning folks are looking at that and saying, well, you need to upsize when our architects are taking the plans to them. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Follow up, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what you're saying really echoes, I think, a lot of what private developers feel as well. Because it's a matter of the feasibility of the project. Does it make sense to go in this location that is so far out, or has all of these challenges that maybe the city imposes in order to do the development? The developers face the same sort of thing. Do I have to oversize this line? Or just a recent discussion with the Board of Public Utilities on a project in Cheyenne, where they're saying the water line has to be extended to the furthest property line on the property. And it's not just schools, it's private developers as well. So what I'm hearing is a lot of the same things that the developers also talk about. The other thing I was going to ask about was the landscaping requirements particularly in some of these larger communities. Are you being faced with having to pay more than what you would anticipate normally because of their specific requirements?
Mr. Chairman, we are. I think another good example is Campbell County Transportation Building. So we're going to have acres of bus parking. We've got the maintenance building, but you got to have all the parking spot for the employees and for the bus drivers when they come in. And so the city is requiring these islands that I talked about, trees down through there at this transportation facility. And the district is negotiating and talking to them, but to me, it's, boy, I guess if the world has unlimited dollars, but we don't. And it costs a lot of money and you know, when you start plowing acres and you see it in Walmarts and the parking lots, by the way, we're talking a lot, like high school and some, there isn't this mall that has as much parking as we're talking about. I mean, we're talking acres and acres of parking. And you pile that up, you see it, the parking lot goes to heck in that, where that snow's been sitting all winter. And so you got to figure out what you're going to do with that, and then all the runoff, and then that drives a bigger storm sewer system because you got runoff from all of this stuff, which adds more cost, and it just cascades. And then in some cases, you're dumping then more water onto the city system, so they want you to upgrade their storm sewer completely away because you can't run a 6-foot sewer into a 4-foot sewer and expect it to work. And I mean, it just goes on and on. So
Director, I do want to acknowledge that Representative Bratton had her hand up, and I apologize. We did not get to you because we've been embroiled in a good conversation here. So Representative, did you have a question? I'm sorry that I didn't get to you a little quicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to say, I am glad that the conversation continued. I agree with Senator Rothfuss in that we should be, the state taxpayers should be paying for the essentials. And if the, cities and towns, it's almost like an exception request. This is what goes above. If it goes above and beyond that, then they should be looking at handling that. And I'm surprised, with these negotiations, when they're making the requests to add to this parking lot, and it just keeps escalating the cost of, as we remember, for that transportation building, which was already, the costs had gone up on that for other reasons, that they want this on top of that. So I'm with Senator Rothfuss on this one, and that we should be taking a very careful look at that.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate those comments, and appreciate Representative Guerin's the conversation that you prompted. I think I think that I want to give people an opportunity to weigh in here in a minute. We've kind of come to the discussion point now where I think we could step aside and get public comment. By the end of the day, I think the committee will take up a couple of your recommendations. We'll see where the committee wants to go with them. Do you have any final thoughts, Director, on this front?
no, I don't.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's take,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just
Mr. Wilmot.
Yeah. With respect to recapture agreements, if any of that revenue does come in, it is deposited historically in the state capital construction account. And now future agreements will be deposited in the school foundation program account. Just to give you some context, the longest serving recapture agreement is here in Natrona County School District number 1. And it began in, at least to the data I have, back in 2010, and approximately $3.7 million has been collected over that time. So over the past 15 years, that's through fiscal year 2025, has come back to the either state capital construction account or school capital construction account or the school foundation program account. 4 other agreements have been in place: Carbon County School District number 1, Crook County School District number 1, Bighorn County School District number 4, and Fremont County School District number 5. And the balance of those are, let me just get you just under 1.6 million over that same time period. But they have not been that same length, and they have faded out over time. So we do collect that revenue. It's deposited back within the school funds. But just wanted to give some context on how much that has been over time.
Appreciate that, Mr. Wellmartha. Just to emphasize that Natrona County number again, I didn't want you guys to forget how much Natrona County is doing for you. Glad to
Yeah, Mr.
step
Chairman,
up.
just under 3.7 million, 3,699,000.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Let's, committee, unless there's other questions or thoughts on this front, let's take any public comment. And then we'll take up some items of consideration for the end of the day. So appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman,
Uh,
couple of things. One, the representative from Wyoming Association of Municipalities was not able to make it today, so everybody should have received their comment in their email kind of late last night. I apologize for that. The other thing is, if you have any questions for the local communities, representatives from WyoPass are online in case you wanted to go there as well.
Okay, we will certainly, thank you. Actually, we will go to them directly. I want to get to those in the room first, and then we'll do that. And I do want to point out that I received a phone call from the executive director of our county folks, and he is unable to be here today too, but obviously has an interest in working with us if we go forward with any considerations. And so he had a family situation that took him away from today. So anybody in the room want to offer any comments with regard to infrastructure? Appreciate it. Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, again, Troy Decker, Facilities Director of Sheridan County School District 2. I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that probably the least expensive part of a new building is not building it. It's maintaining and taking care of it over its lifespan. It costs millions and millions of dollars in personnel as well as equipment and utilities and all those things. And upkeep, maintenance. But one of the things I wanted to point out is the operational impacts also. When you were talking about the large parking lot requirements and stuff, school districts generally do not have huge front end loaders that they use only the winter. And those are very, very expensive machines. And not only that, but every time it snows, depending on how much it snows, you only have about 2 hours to clear those parking lots for occupancy when people start showing up about 7 in the morning. So I just want to point out also that there are operational expenditures for school districts when we start expanding parking lots and things like that, that have to do with state monies and outflow through school districts as well. So I want to make sure I pointed out that portion as well.
Troy, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Any questions? All right. Good points made. Anyone else want to make any comments with regard to our infrastructure visit?
Yeah, Chairman Andy now, high school district again. I guess when I heard that, I think there's a lot to say to that. So I'm not going to say everything I had to say, but I guess to Mr. Director McComey's point, I think this is a committee that could probably address this. And I think it's different. I want to get sidetracked here, but for example, let's start with the land on our new 5-6 elementary. It's in a low spot, but it was purchased. We have like 56 acres. I'm guessing it was probably some of the cheapest land at the time when it was purchased. There's another elementary school adjacent to it. So that land has sat there. Well, not only there's an expectation for us to construct a system that'll carry extra capacity for further development, but the development that was prior to us, that expectation wasn't necessarily put on those developers to build a system big enough to carry us as we went through. And I think I look at this a little differently. and I'll just say this, so you know, I'm not just making up a story, but I spent about 25 years in construction and development, commercial construction, around this, mostly this state, northern Colorado. And I've about 15 years in school construction now. And it, you know, on the private side, as a developer, when you go through and you're developing, you do have some of the same issues as a school. However, you're developing and reselling for money, for profit. When we come in, to Director McCombie's point, we have a budget that's set for that school. It does not include stoplights and offsite infrastructure and extra roads and curb and gutter and sewer systems and storm drainage. And we're not there for profit. So we're spending that money to support the kids, which also supports their development. And from a developer's point of view, that school is drawing that development, right? That's a good thing for them. But I don't think the burden should be put on the school just because it seems like there's deep pockets and government money there. And as we've gone through our schools, I would say with the last school we built, we ended up having to trade land for an easement to the city to try and get a stoplight put in before they would let us continue with the school. Out where we're at right now, we have a really unique situation. As I mentioned before, we have the city, the county, and the state all involved in that one. And we have a data center adjacent to us. We have a big developer going adjacent to us. So there's a lot of things going on around that school that I don't think the burden should be put on on the school district to have to pay for that infrastructure because of that amount of development. When we're the ones that are limited, we can't raise the price of our school and make money back. And the recapture agreement's fine as long as development continues. But you don't know if it's going to continue, and we don't even know what will go there because directly, almost, well, adjacent to the school in one direction is a huge trailer park that probably as development occurs, eventually that'll sell out to some other sort of development. But what will it be that you would recapture? Depends on what's going to go in there. So I think there's a lot to consider there. And I wanted to touch a little bit on the requirements of the city, in particular, like Cheyenne. I think it makes less sense to plant 100 evergreen trees on a school site in Cheyenne than it does probably in, you know, Sheridan or somewhere where there's actually moisture and things grow and the wind doesn't blow them over. So, you know, on Cary Junior High, we had to plant, I think it was 170, almost 200 trees on that site. In addition to all the bushes and shrubs that were required and the islands that were put in there. And most of those trees have died at least twice. And we've replaced a lot of them and replaced them again. And so I don't know what that looks like. I don't think it looks the same in every district across the state. But to your point earlier of thinking that schools were exempt from having to do some of this, you know, maybe that's a good way to go with some of that. I don't know.
Appreciate it, Andy. Thank you very much. If we can get you to do it though, you schools, that really helps us. That's a good thing.
I know. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Any further public comment? Okay, let's, and Madam Vice Chairman, did you have something?
I did. I just wanted to say that we do live in Wyoming where there are hardly any trees on the eastern side. So I can't keep a tree alive either. So.
Okay, let's, and actually refresh my memory. Who do we have online this afternoon?
Mr. Chairman, you have Angela Parker with the Wyoming Association of Planners, I think it is, online, and she's available to answer any questions you guys may have.
Okay, yeah, let's bring Ms. Parker on board and we would welcome any comments. Good afternoon.
My name's Angela Parker, like she said, and I am the president of the Wyoming Planning Association. And we kind of polled some of our members when we found out about this meeting and were asked to participate. A lot of the communities treat schools the same as they treat any other commercial development. And I agree with previous speakers who said that, you know, there's a difference because schools don't make money like development does, and commercial companies do when they're building. So I agree that there should be some exemptions for schools, and we would be glad to work with this committee and whoever else to try to work through that so that it works for the communities as well as for the schools.
Ms. Parker, thank you. Really appreciate those comments and appreciate you being here this afternoon. It's an awfully busy schedule for our associations and for our legislature as well. So 2 or 3 of our folks who sometimes testify were not able to be here, and we appreciate you being here. Any questions, committee? Ms. Parker, anything further? Thank you for your comments.
Nope, I think that's all I had. We do have a planning association meeting next week. It's our spring workshop, and I think this will be a topic of conversation. So we'll try to get some more input from our members. And then, we'd be happy to come back to your meeting in August and provide some more information and try to help make things easier for the schools.
Well, thank you, Ms. Parker. And I'm not sure where the committee will go with this here at the end of the day. We'll take that up here in a few minutes. But I suspect we'll have an opportunity to continue the conversation, perhaps even related to a potential bill. And so always welcome all the feedback and input that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's close public comment. We're to the end of the agenda. Committee. Ms. Heitrick, before we offer any considerations for your help, would you be willing to kind of recap from your standpoint what we took up and what we did today? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you made several requests, and we have those noted here. The first is you'd like to know about the major maintenance and the impact of virtual education on the allowable square footage. We agreed to provide historical enrollment as well as actual and allowable square footage by the school district. We will definitely need the assistance of the state construction department to complete that. Also, you discussed that educational suitability and coming up with some type of solution, again, with the state construction department to kind of get your arms around an objective measure to address those situations like moving the school wall as well as the modification of the Albany County School District #1 building.
So
And then,
so that could be, Ms. Hartrick, sorry to interject, but just minor renovation type things. There might be language that we can come up with, but yeah.
certainly, Mr. Chairman, if you recall, you did have minor capital construction previously. That's a mechanism that the state has used to tackle some of these projects. It's somewhat been replaced with component funding. And so you could move back to that. I think the biggest hurdle with that is ensuring an objective way to get those projects in front of this committee to ensure, you're providing that opportunity equitably.
Okay, thank you.
And then the next part was about insurance costs and premiums for facilities. And you asked for additional information. I think that's going to take quite a bit of research. How we insure facilities in each school district across the state is a huge undertaking, as well as coming up with some type of potential solutions to address that. And then lastly, the discussion of the infrastructure discussion that you had at the end of the meeting. Again, asking LSO to partner with the state construction department to come up with some possible ideas for the next meeting. I'll look at the rest of our table to see if I missed anything.
That's very helpful, Ms. Hartrick. Thank you. And so then I would go to the committee for any interjections that any of you have. with regard to what might be helpful for the second meeting. Senator Rothfuss.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had a lot of those concepts on my list and appreciate those moving forward. The one that I think we could probably just get a bill draft ready for is bringing back our 135% of allowable square footage bill draft for consideration once again. And then in that bill draft, I think it would be same topic and very simple to remove virtual students from the allowable square footage calculation as a part of that same bill. So it would just be a little bit of an addition. We can talk about that more, but I think it would probably be an easy addition into the bill, and having that language in front of us for discussion would be useful. So my motion would be to request a bill draft making the 135% of allowable square footage permanent, consistent with the bill we ran last year, and then including the removal of virtual students from allowable square footage calculations.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Provenza. Discussion? Committee, this is simply just bill draft stuff that we would request for the second meeting, take a look at. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That motion has passed, and so if we could redraft 115 to 135, that would be something we can take up in August and get a look at. Senator Rothfuss, anything further?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Heitrich captured everything else that I thought we needed to talk about. I do think that renovation funding concept, maybe that would be draftable. Maybe that's discussable, and I guess I'd leave it up to you and the vice chair to decide as things proceed, whether that is worthy of a bill draft, if it looks like it's coalescing around something, because maybe we can get there, and I think it's an important topic.
Yeah. Madam Vice Chairman, the end of the day, we did touch on potential language from another state that they've actually addressed some of the infrastructure. And I wondered if we wouldn't want to maybe even try to stand up, similar legislation, but go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think also we'd like to find out how many of these, maybe the agency knows, but how many of the minor renovation projects are there out there? Is this more of an issue that we're not realizing? So if we could get just some maybe details on that, how many times do you have a district come and say, hey, we just want to move a wall or whatever, if we could get some of that. But yeah, I think touching back on the chairman on, the other state and their infrastructure requirements and some of that language, I would be open to that. I think we're all realizing this is something that needs to be addressed and has not. So I would entertain that.
If that is a motion, do I have a second to take a look at that infrastructure piece? Seconded by Representative Heft. Discussion? I'm not saying that's ready for prime time, but we can sure take a look at it. Committee, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. If we can get that to bill draft stage, then Ms. Heitrich, we would sure take a look at it the second meeting. I think we've already got, a pretty good agenda coming up in August. That's when we will also get a better idea from our agency folks and from our commission what we might be looking at in October. So is there anything further? Anything further from our staff? Thank you for all that you do, all four of you. We really appreciate your help today. Thank you, committee, for being here. It's a busy time. I enjoyed the visit. And thanks to all of you. We're going to get to a little charter school conversations as we go throughout the interim. We'll learn more on that front. So thank you, everybody. We're adjourned. Harley, I won't see you at TRW. That's,
That's okay. We got another meeting to go to.
well, the drinks are gonna be on me. No, have a good few weeks.
And if I have time, I might jump on, but I know.
Please don't sweat it. We'll just miss having you here.